with the plenary sessions now that we have completed the formalities. We begin with the plenary sessions of the day. And the first plenary session is on Disruptive and Transformational Forces for Services Globalization in LAC. Kindly take a look at this video.
How can we make the most of knowledge-based services? The pandemic caused a global digital acceleration that is positively impacting Latin America and the Caribbean's digital service exports. Today, the region has many startup accelerators and public entrepreneurship promotions, but LAC's share of global service exports is only 3.5%. Innovation in the region is challenged by the rapid pace of change, competition, and regulation. To maximize its full potential, LAC requires high levels of public and private investment in research and development and improved integration between academia and the business community. Let's take advantage of digital opportunities to expand globally.
That you kindly leave it at the convention or at the conference. So if you're leaving to go to lunch, we just ask that you kindly leave it either on your seats or you can leave them on the table outside. So I would like to now invite the members of the very first plenary session of this summit. And our esteemed moderator is Fabrizio Operti, Integration and Trade Sector Manager of the Inter-American Development Bank. Kindly make him welcome. And our panelists, Carolina Dolan, Chief Digital Officer, Globant, Argentina and US. Daniel Castro, Director of Value Advisory for LAC North, SAP, Colombia. Mariana Franza, Chief Operating Officer, O2LAC, Argentina. Adi Cook, Global AI Policy Lead, Google Cloud, US. And Linda Langford, Senior Director and Country Leader, Conduent, Jamaica. We welcome everyone. Thank you so very much for being here. First, we will hear a brief presentation by Fabrizio Operti on the role of the IDB as a facilitator of knowledge-based services exports, which will serve as a preamble to the panel. Fabrizio, over to you.
Honored, first of all, to thank the Jamaican people, the host government, Prime Minister Holness, Minister Hill, Juliette Fox, leader of JAVRO, and so many Jamaican leaders that have made this 9th edition of O2LAC possible for the first time in the Caribbean. So we're really delighted. We started back in 2011. My country, Uruguay, Montevideo, and many of you here, entrepreneurs from almost 40 countries around the world, have been following O2LAC, have been joining forces to make this movement, this event, which generates innovation and business skills, employment, and for us, as the Inter-American Development Bank, we believe as a driver of economic development. Also, would like to thank the governments from all over the region. We have more than 20 investment promotion agencies from Latin America and the Caribbean present here that are always there, vying for the sector, innovating, learning. So it will be a couple of really amazing days. We'll have the IDB president tomorrow, and we urge you to be here to listen to his vision and to see all the good things and activities and actions that the IDB has to foster in this sector. And of course, the panel could not be better, and we will shortly engage in a conversation. I'd like to just give some context and a few reflections. First, the name of the game is AI. Everybody's talking about artificial intelligence and its impact on the sector, which undoubtedly will be there. We will hear a lot about that. We will learn from top practitioners about AI this coming days. So it will be really a learning opportunity in that sense. Task automation is a real phenomenon. According to the World Economic Forum's Future of Jobs 2023 survey, by 2027, and it's not so far, up to 35% of reasoning and decision-making processes and up to 65% of IT processes will be replaced by AI. But we have to think, and I support the Prime Minister's words completely, this not as a threat, but rather as an opportunity. Private sector and government have to monitor, have to devise those new skills that will be generated by AI, like any technological revolution. And in our lifetime, we've lived quite a few. It's been historic in our lifetime, all the things we've lived, right? Through the internet and social media, etc., etc. Always new jobs are created. The thing is getting the right programs in place to do that. And that, we think, is a key objective, a key function for both public and private. The government cannot be alone, the private sector cannot be alone. This will affect fintech, agtech, health tech, travel tech, animation, video games, engineering, architecture. Every sector that is here present will be affected by this. But new opportunities will be created. Why do we support the services sector from the IDB? It's a major employment generator. More than 60% of the jobs in our region are generated by the services sector. And the services export sector, a manager of trade and investment and integration at the bank, has been much more resilient than the goods sector in the pandemic and throughout different crises. It actually, the last 16 years, it increased fourfold compared to goods. So the exports of services, what all of you entrepreneurs and companies engage in, that is growing at double digits. And this is the sector that will generate the jobs of the future in the region. By the way, services companies are more productive than goods companies. They generate more employment, they grow faster, and they create more employment for women. So many things are going on. Investment is key. That's why the investment promotion agencies fulfill a key task in that area. And the IDB, finally, as a development bank, we are completely committed to this sector. And President Goldfein tomorrow of the IDB is going to give his grand vision for the region and development. On the trade sector and services in particular, we have carried out not only forums with entrepreneurs, not only Connect Americas, where the conversation continues and the deals continue with 16 million users from 200 countries, but also national level programs. Like in Uruguay, in my country with MIT, with a data science program, 100 graduates, 47 companies have been created. Here in Jamaica, with the skills development program, the Global Services project, the GSS, more than 6,000 workers have been trained. In Chile, 16,000 IT jobs. In Colombia, more than $240 million in deals through the promotion of the sector. So there is a function, there is a role, there is a public good for the government to promote the sector. And believe me, the IDB will be behind you and behind this sector. So having given that context, and without further ado, I will now start and jumpstart this conversation. Wishing you a lot of luck, a lot of deals. 900 business meetings have been arranged. Make a lot of deals. Continue the conversations in the coffee, in the cocktails, and everywhere. So we will start with Carolina. Welcome, Carolina. What is the Chief Digital Officer role? You're at Globant, a unicorn, an Argentinian unicorn. Pride of the region. What does that mean? What does that entail for the audience to share?
Hi, Fabricio. Hi, everyone. It's a pleasure being here, honestly. So being a Chief Digital Officer is a little bit of a new role. It's pretty recent. It hasn't existed in many years. And as such, it's not one thing for everybody. Every single company has its own definition of what a CDO does. And even in some cases, that role is covered by other people, sometimes by the CIO, sometimes by the CDO, the CMO, a combination of all of them. But what it is and why it matters and why everyone should have some sort of definition of it is someone who sits and thinks about technology and the business strategy as a combined thing. Someone who is looking and setting the vision in terms of how technology is going to complement whatever you're doing, whatever your customer is, be it an internal customer, an external customer, or anything like that. A perfect example of this is what the Prime Minister mentioned. He appointed a minister specifically for digital transformation, because keeping this vision of putting everything in place and trying to align the interests of a lot of different parties that you will have internally is not an easy task. And that also, it doesn't also entail looking at what my business objectives are, but what is the talent that I have? Where do I get that talent from? Do I need to go to different places? Do I need to work with different companies? Do I need, who do I need as a partner to be successful? Digital transformation is not something that is a simple thing. Yesterday we were talking about my role even within my company has shifted, and as I shifted we were talking, and she asked me, well, in the 9 months were you able to finish what you started? I'm like, heck no, you don't end a digital transformation in 9 months. You don't end it in 3 years either, because in 2 years there's going to be something new that is going to make you think about something else. So it's this hamster wheel that we're on that can feel sometimes a little bit frustrating, but it's super rewarding at the end of the day when you see the impact that you have on your customers, on your communities, on the different places where you start sourcing your talent and all of those.
You don't have an easy job, Carolina. Digital transformation is not simple. You have to partner. Those are great reflections. It moves too fast. I'm talking about moving fast. Adi, you're at Google. You guys move fast. AI policy lead at Google, actually. How are cloud-based services contributing to the tech entrepreneurship momentum in LAC? What can you say to the entrepreneurs here about the possibilities of the cloud?
Okay. First, thank you so much for having me. Let me just say how Google Cloud, specifically the enterprise arm of Google, is working to support Latin America. And I would say that's through three ways. People, people, I would say processes, and technology infrastructure. And we're doing all three of those things, as you well know, Fabrizio, very close partnership with the IDB. The IDB is absolutely essential to all three of those. So let's just unpack people for 1 second. People really is our education component. I know we're working with you in a lot of different countries to broker new training programs, making sure that our Google for Startups program is made more available to people on the ground where they need it, so people know how to plug into our programs, get started on our platform, get access to programs and partnerships. It's not just about Google Cloud. So MongoDB, Atlas is a great platform where we're trying to bring small and medium enterprises onto our platform to do low-code, no-code application building to get your business with the security and privacy features right away, so you can get to launch in just a matter of minutes once you develop it. That takes creativity though, right? Like it's AI enabled, but without the human creativity, without the skills and the training to get yourself to that point, that's what we're doing with you, right? Through the IDB, to make sure people have access to those programs. So that's the people part. The second part, processes, and this is where, you know, our public policy conversations come in with you, where I know the trade and promotion authorities are very important, is, you know, this is all a process, right? It's a public sector, government-driven regulatory environment, and then it has to match up to what is actually happening on the ground in the private sector, and that is, again, where the IDB plays, and that's where Google has plugged in through the American Business Dialogue, right? Figuring out, trying to show you our product roadmaps, where we're seeing the skills going in our industry, making sure that they're well understood by folks who broker the conversations with governments, so that, you know, in major platforms like the Summit of Americas, where we're talking about interoperability, regulatory environments that can cross regimes, that's really, really important. For number three, the bucket number three is our technology infrastructure. Google has invested in our data centers across Latin America. We have 3 key regions right now in Mexico, Chile, and Brazil. But that's just the beginning, right? you need the technology infrastructure, and the technology infrastructure where we make investments in those infrastructure is very much based on the regulatory environment. And so key to the digital transformation is the regulatory environment. And all three of those things are really key, and that's why I am so honored to be here among all the entrepreneurs and business leaders to participate in these discussions, because the IDB is a really key player in helping us knock out all three of those buckets and make sure we're engaged to lift all the digital economies that are going through this significant transformation.
Thank you so much, Ari, talking about people, about small and medium enterprises, and about dialogue. The dialogue is key. We have to devise it together. And Mariana, talking about dialogue, and about also women leaders here in my panel. A big shout out for that. Women leadership in Latin America and the Caribbean, in the hemisphere. Mariana, Voila Argentina. How are the disruptive technologies transforming fintech in Latin America today and the Caribbean, a sector which is quite innovative in our region? Let's see if the mic works, or we get another one. We don't get nervous here.
Does it work?
It works. Yes.
Actually, it does. Good for technology. Yeah, one. Okay, so fintech. First and foremost, thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here with everybody. Good morning. Fintech around Latin America and the Caribbean are disrupting the traditional banking and financial industry. At Voila, we do it with the purpose of financial inclusion. For those who don't know what Voila is, we are a financial ecosystem that provides systems, personal loans, payment systems, not systems only, payment systems and transactions, also credit, personal loans, investment products, as well as merchant acquiring for 5 million users in Argentina, Colombia, and Mexico through 3 different regulated entities. We have banks, broker-dealers, and asset managers. We have been able to financially include 5 million users in our platform. How? Which is actually way more than what the traditional banking system has done in many, many decades, because we've been able to use disruptive technology. For instance, and it might be very obvious for a lot of people, right? But the fact that our platform is 100% cloud is actually a difference with the traditional finance and banking industry that are heavily reliant on mainframes and data centers and paperwork and physical branches and manual processing. Because we've been able to do 100% on cloud, that basically means that we can scale faster, and not only faster, we can bring the cost of financing and of transacting banking products 80% down. And you can do it at any point of the day and of the week of the time. You can actually be sipping a rum punch in one of the beautiful beaches of Jamaica and open a bank account and also get a credit and do a transfer and do a payment on a Sunday afternoon, which is basically something that you probably wouldn't be able to do in a traditional financing system, right? So the fact that we're 100% cloud is one of the basic differences that we have, and that's actually helped as a fintech to grow. But the second one, and it's a very trendy one, AI, right? We all like to talk about AI right now. So AI has been also disrupting even us as disruptors, as a fintech. For example, it has helped us in fraud prevention, because now with AI, we can collect data from different sources and understand behavioral patterns of certain transactions. And instead of being reactive, we can be predictive of certain things. In addition, for customer service, AI has been great. At Voila, we actually use a conversational chatbot. It almost looks like a human when you use it, that understands the type of problems that you have, and it's going to be able to solve your problem without the use or the need of a customer service person. The next step, what we're going to do, is actually imagine this. Going into your app and needing a very specific report with charts and graphs and information that you need to do your tax report, for example, that you're not going to get in a standard way. Imagine just putting all of that in a chatbot and then, I don't know, a minute later getting exact report that you need, right? You can't do that today, right? So actually that is one of the things. And finally, and I'm going to finish with this, Internet of Things, IoT, right? We have smartwatches and smart devices and everything. It's amazing the things that we can do today. One of the things that Internet of Things is actually disrupting on the fintech, specifically for insurtech. Imagine an insurance company being able to track, might sound a little bit big brotherish, but it's actually helpful, to track how many hours you sleep and how many hours you drive and what kind of health you have, and be able to calculate an accurate premium for your insurance without overcharging you. That is what AI and also IoT is doing by using smart devices and wearables, etc., integrating all of these technologies so we can get technology faster, safer, more transparent, and actually at a cheaper cost for users.
Okay, wow. Embracing AI and really looking at its potential, that it will be a great thing. And it will help us very much. That's great, fantastic. Linda, you're an entrepreneur from a Jamaican company, and you're a local here, so we welcome you, and we're honored to have you here. How do you think and reflect might new technologies contribute to employee skill development in order to achieve that great potential, that talent potential that this sector, of course, requires? What are your thoughts on that?
Can everybody hear me? All right. Well, first of all, technology-enabled training is paramount in order to advance. It's how employees grow, it's how companies grow, it's how countries grow. And I think in order to reach the full potential, we need to start that training and get it in at a very early age. Get it into the schools at an early age. So as children matriculate up through the institutions, that terminology is common to them, that understanding of why technological advancement so that they can do these things is so important. By doing that, by introducing this at a very early age, I think it will help companies, it will help employees, it will help countries to grow, to expand, to offer higher level services. And you know, by facilitating that, it will become part of a person's DNA, which will enable them to reach their full potential, whatever that full potential might be, whether it's within their own company, whether it's personally, whether it is within their country. They're going to be able to embrace the new tools that are introduced to them without having a fear, without having any hesitation. They're going to then go for opportunities that will be afforded to them, whether that be, as I say, within their own industry, within their own business. If they're in a training program, they're not going to shy away from using that new application, because we're kind of in a strange situation. We're kind of in a strange vibe here, and we were talking about this yesterday as we were meeting. You know, over the last 40 to 50 years, technology has changed so much. We have a generation that walks around with 2 phones, and all they do everything on their phones, right? But we also have a generation who believes that they still have to go to the bank in order to deposit a check. And when you're in that, and technology is moving so quickly, you need to figure out how you can keep up, how you can excel, how you can do the things that Mariana is talking about, the incredible things, and using technology, because that's the way that we are going. But we cannot close the door on that generation who still needs to go to the bank or still believes in going to the bank to deposit that physical check, right? I was sharing a story. My mother gave my son a check, and she said, okay, Evan, you know, let's go down to the bank and you can deposit it. And he looked at her and he goes, Grandma? And he took a picture and he said, okay, it's deposited, let's go. What are we gonna do? And I kid you not, for 2 days, she kept saying to him, are you sure that money's in the bank? Are you sure? Did you double check? And she told everybody for 2 weeks, that's what she was talking about. Do you know what Evan did? And you know, that's kind of why I say we're in this kind of strange, you know, funk that we need to embrace the technology, so we need to introduce it at a very early age so that these types of things are not strange and foreign to advancement, because with that, employees will grow, companies will grow, and countries will grow. And so, I think introducing technology at an early age in our early learning institutions, instead of having computer science as an elective in university, which is where I had it, as an elective, it must be mandatory, right? Now that I just shared my age inadvertently, but that's okay. So I think that's where we need to go in order for people to reach their full potential and companies and countries to reach their full potential.
Thank you, Linda. Working with, thank you. Working with digital skills in every period of life and recognizing the human behaviors and how, even in the pandemic, we lived through that, right? More senior citizens became digital natives because there was no other option. So always the human dimension is key. Daniel,
hello.
Welcome from Bogota, from
Yeah,
SAP.
vamos. I'm gonna use the two language over here.
Daniel, how do you think technological innovation can have a positive impact and be linked to the environment, to environmental sustainability? This is the issue of our times. And it's kind of warm here, I know you guys are suffering a little bit, but it's a good thing that they see it's not so high. We're saving some energy. So we're being environmentally sustainable here. But
yeah, we're
the
serving
link
energy
between technology and the environment, what do you think about that, Daniel? Welcome.
Yeah, I think it's in all of the headlines, right? So we're all thinking about climate change. And when I talk to the customers, the first question is, okay, I want to embrace ESG activities, but how? It's this like trending topic right now. And I want to talk about some cases of some industries that we're having right now. If you see IoT in utilities, they're embedding IoT in asset management so they can reduce energy consumption. If you can see digital twins in manufacturing, they're using digital twins to reduce the amount of prototypes built so they can reduce waste. And also they're building the process digitally so they can find efficiencies and also reduce energy consumption. And this is a nice one that I'm seeing right now is blockchain. We all talk about cryptocurrencies, but blockchain, you can track the materials you're using in your production to the stakeholders so they can be addressed to your vision of transforming a sustainable business. And we have talked about this a lot, and our CEO, Christian Klein, says, sustainability is no one-man job. This is a teamwork. So everyone has to play a role. So the governments are investing in this, the companies are investing in this, and when you talk about transformation, you can talk about digital transformation, you can talk about business transformation, you can talk about sustainable transformation. The three pillars are, and Ari talked about it, is the impact. I'm going to impact the process, the technology I'm using, but the most important one is the people. And we were talking about this, the people. How are we transforming the people? So if we can leverage this innovation and also talk about creativity, we need to bring the tools to the right people. Then we're going to see an escalation and this acceleration that we need right now to impact sustainability in the short term.
Very, very powerful. Power to the people, skills to the people.
Power to the people.
That's very, very important. And what you said, which is a recurring theme, is the partnerships. It doesn't take, can't take government alone or private sector alone, and that has been a recurring theme. I put my headphones because I hear better. It's not that I need translation, but I hear much better with them. And if any of you need, maybe we'll get some more of these because to help the acoustics to the team, they can bring some more. So now, Carolina, back to you. We were talking about a digital transformation. And sometimes it's a bit of an abstract notion for, everybody talks about digital transformation, but okay, what is it? What strategies are there that you're deciphering from Globant in place to carry out? So, you know, I know you started with that, but I want to double click on your brains on that.
Let me give some context first, because Globant is not Google, that everybody knows. So I want to share what Globant is. Globant is a services company, and we basically do this for clients. So what I'm going to talk about, the strategies, they don't come just from what I'm doing internally for us, but also what I've seen happen in our clients and what I've seen be successful. Probably everybody knows that about 70 to 80 digital transformation initiatives typically fail. And that's because, again, it's such a very slim content definition, you know. It's what is it? What is it for you? So there are 5 things that I think are critical whenever you're thinking about starting even any of these. First, start with goals, with a vision. And I'm not talking about what do I want to solve for today. I'm talking about how is this going to help your company in 5 years? Look at your 5-year-long plan and see what is it that you need. Prioritize, because all of us, I'm sure every single person in this room has a laundry list of technical things that we could improve in our company if we had infinite money. And we don't have infinite money. We don't have infinite anything. So figure it out. Is it going to be sustainability? Because that is at the heart of your business right now. Is it going to be a better experience for your clients or whoever that is? Is it going to be inclusion? What is it that you want to achieve? And set a very clear vision. Number 2 is technology. Looking at 5 years is a little bit challenging when it comes to technology, because technology continues to appear and disappear. If you looked 3 years ago, blockchain was all the boom. Now blockchain has changed a little bit, and it has become critical in some industries, but not a global thing. AI, oof. I don't think any single one of us is not discussing internally how we're going to leverage Gen AI. Well, slow down, think about the use cases that align with your goal, but look at technology as a whole. Look at what you have and where you want to go, because it's not, you can't throw away everything you have. There's potential in what you have in there already. Buy-in from top leadership. If you don't have your top executives on board on whatever plan you're trying to execute, you are going to fail. It's inevitable, because there's a lot of hurdles that you're going to have to jump over, and they're not going to be easy. And if they're not invested into whatever your plan is as much as you are, just say goodbye. Seriously, you're not going to be successful. Number 4, change management. Linda was talking about how we have 2 generations. We have the generation that is all day with a phone. We have the generation that is not so tech savvy. You have that in your customers, in your employees, wherever. Thinking about how you're going to enact change on all of those populations is critical to be successful. And change management, I don't know how many of you have had to establish change management strategies. They are hard. Some people think that you send an email and that's it, everybody will learn. No. No. I spent 6 years in marketing. I can tell you that for any single message to get into somebody's brain, you have to be in front of their face at least 5 times. And there's statistics about this. So even if you want to change your employees to stop using, let's say, Hangouts and move to Slack, you're not going to do that just by enabling Slack. You're going to have to do a lot of work behind that. And number 5 is measure. One of the problems with all of this is that when you change technology, when you're thinking about, I want to make the experience better, it's not always easy to quantify what that better is. But if you don't stop and think about how you're going to show those results, what KPIs you're going to put behind them that are smart, that are small, measurable, articulated, etc., again, you're not going to be able to show and to even trust what you're doing, and that what you're doing is effectively working. So if it is a simple thing like measuring activity on a web, how many transactions are being done through a certain way, that's sometimes really easy. When you're changing behavior, you have to be a little bit more creative in terms of how you're going to measure it. But again, if you don't stop and think about how you're going to measure it, you're not going to be able to show the progress.
I don't know about you. I'm taking that list home. Very important 5 elements. I loved it, really, and applies to, I was thinking about my job. Yeah. I mean, you always tend to think about your own job when you get suggestions that are so savvy. And I really like what you said about slow down, with AI. Slow down, it won't be the root of all evil. You have to look at your competitive advantage and use AI to your competitive advantage. I think that's a great message, Carolina. Adi, back to you. You're a public policy leader, a global public policy leader at Google. What do you think is the role of public policy in creating that enabling environment for these things that we're talking about, for digital transformation? How can public policy play a role? And of course, as the IDB, we're very interested in listening to you on that one.
Yeah, absolutely. So in my role, I do track regulations from Europe to APAC to Latin America. But let's just start with what's actually happening on the ground. I want to level set because we've heard some really great examples for how O2LAC is using AI or even thinking about using AI, and Carolina talked about change management and preparing the workforce. MIT recently released a really, really interesting study that I encourage everybody who's interested in change management and how generative AI might be used in the workplace, and specifically in the services sector. They spent a year following a call center company in the Philippines, so another services-based company, and 5,000 call center workers. And what they found, their high-level message was, you shouldn't be afraid of AI. In fact, you should be afraid if you're not using AI. What they found was a 14% boost in productivity across all 5,000 workers. But more significantly, they saw a 35% productivity boost among the lowest entry-level workers. Why? Again, we go back to what O2LAC was talking about, right? How O2LAC is thinking about it, which is through conversational chatbots that are assisting the worker. They're not necessarily replacing the worker. They can replace the worker for the most basic questions that a call center might get, but it's really, humans are always gonna have a role in the most complex questions, transactions, where you think about what AI can't quite yet do well. The Prime Minister gave the example of legal work, documentation, I dare say filing taxes. You're always gonna need a human to double check that work. And that's what the MIT study also found. It can help make even those lowest skilled entry-level workers more productive because you're giving them access to knowledge and they can put that knowledge together in a way that only humans can verify and check. Fascinating. That is how we're going to see generative AI play out on the ground. So then public policy. Global governments need to acknowledge the realities on the ground. And I think, again, this is where the IDB is really helping us. We're often doing a salsa or a tango, right? Public sector, private sector, government, and what the private sector wants to enable. And I think the IDB is like our instructor in the middle, being like, okay, no, your foot goes here, your foot goes there. And it's really important that we maintain a positive posture in these conversations, because there's absolutely risks. Daniela and I were talking about, there's privacy risks, there's security risks, and we have a role to play in helping government understand what we're doing to address their concerns, how we are building things into our platform to enable even small and medium enterprises the ability to protect and secure their transactions, their support that they're giving to their customers. You're our customer, and we support you in providing those regulatory, meeting those regulatory expectations as well. But generative AI is absolutely sort of blowing open the regulatory playbook, and we're having to evaluate what are the new guardrails we need. I'm just going to list just a couple, and I think we're going to talk a little bit about responsible AI in a bit here too. But transparency, as we were talking about, especially in things like financial services, healthcare, employment. There are certain sectors that will use AI that probably should be required to provide higher levels of documentation, and transparency about how AI is supporting the transaction, how AI is supporting the delivery of that service, and to ensure that when the transaction doesn't work out the way it was intended, just as in a human transaction, we know how to fix it, how to remedy it. That's just one example, but obviously there are a number of other privacy and security conversations that we need to make sure we're approaching together.
Thank you so much, Ari. Really, really interesting thoughts on this impact. We told you we were going to talk about AI in this outsourced O2LAC, but the impact on productivity, pretty amazing. And I agree, it takes two to tango, salsa, and everything. We have to decide for public and private the new regulations for artificial intelligence together. And so another very, very powerful message. And we're doing that. IDB, within the Americas Business Dialogue, we have a working group on this with many of the companies here. Mariana, back to you, and sort of on the theme, but going to how does O2LAC in each country, how do you navigate, or salsa, or tango, in each of the countries? How do you apply those strategies when I know you're looking for some places to invest? So trade promotion agencies, you know, talk to these companies, they want to invest in Latin America. And how do you navigate that? What are your thoughts on that?
We definitely have to learn the local dance every time we go to a new country, right? So when we expand to new countries, we look for a couple of things. Number one, we look for the number of people that either are underbanked or unbanked, which in Latin America and the Caribbean is a high percentage. According to some stats, 50% of the population in LAC is either underbanked or unbanked. We also look at the penetration of smartphones and internet, right? Because that's how we actually are able to do our business and operate. We're also looking at the regulatory environment and the financial macro environment of that country, as well as, you know, population of that country. So we look at all of that, and then we decide if the type of competition, et cetera, and what kind of regulations or what kind of licenses do we need to go into that country. It is definitely not a copy-paste. It's not like we started in Argentina, plug and play, let's go to Colombia, plug and play, let's go to Mexico. Because every country has their culture, their flavors, their dance in every respect. So I'll give you examples of things that we've done different. We have a building block, as I said before, of certain products that we offer. But that doesn't mean that we offer the exact same product in every country. And I'll go now to the example. In Mexico, Mexico has an industry of remittances of $58 billion. Right, so we actually have a product of remittances in Mexico, but that is not an applicable product for Argentina that has extensive FX and international wire money into, transfers restrictions. So that is one thing that we don't do in both countries. Another one, in Colombia, for instance. Colombia in the past 5 or 6 years, and Daniel, you're from Colombia, so you probably know this, they went from a 0.5 population of immigrants in Colombia to 2.5% of immigrants in Colombia. They were one of the countries that received most immigrants in the past 5 years. So what happened is that there was a huge population that were not able to be banked, right? So that is one thing that we actually adapted. We said, we have to create a new product for this country that we don't have in other countries. Lastly, in Argentina, we're all experts in FX currency and in FX exchange. If anybody knows anything about Argentina, you know that we're not, we're a little bit of a mess. But anyway, so we are all, experts in FX. So there's a specific FX product that we have embedded in our product that is only applicable to Argentina. So what we do is we look at our competition, we look at the macro environment, we look at the financial environment of the country, and we start building. But definitely the regulatory environment, as Adi was saying, is extremely challenging. Not all countries actually are up to date, let's put it that way, with how fintechs and digitally native companies have to operate. Again, Brazil and Colombia are two examples of being actually in Chile very advanced when it comes to fintech regulations. Other countries, not so much. For instance, Mexico is very particular about what information goes on cloud and what doesn't, right? So when we actually wanted to open in Mexico, we had to readapt our technology strategy to understand, still be on cloud, but on par with the Mexican regulations. So again, it's not plug and play. As we said, we have to learn the dance of every country and then do the dance.
That's one that's going to stay in as one of the quotes of O2LAC. It's not plug and play. You have to adapt. You have to understand the idiosyncrasy, legal, political, cultural. So very, very interesting as well. Thank you, Mariana, for that. Linda, if we dance or reggae or soca into the Caribbean, how can the Caribbean embrace this digital transformation? How can the Caribbean people win from this? What can be done?
You know, I think as a region, by embracing the different countries will, just as Jamaica has done, embrace the transformation that's coming. Jamaica has seen this. We're well positioned for advancement and growth with the new appointment of the Minister for Skills Development. And so I think there are two things that happen with embracing, as you say, the growth and accepting the digital transformation. And there are two key things. Infrastructure and people. And as a region, I think every country in the Latin American region here, in the Caribbean certainly, our infrastructure is solid, it's stable, it's developing every single day. And so I think, you know, once you have that and once you continue to acknowledge that that is a critical element, then the next critical element is the people, right? It's the people that we need to empower, we need to give that confidence to. And the Prime Minister mentioned programs like HEART that we have here in Jamaica. We also have programs that we work with, as I say, in the sector. And one of those is the GSS training program that is led by my buddy, Miss Marjorie here. And that is sponsored by the IDB. And it is absolutely brilliant. We started this about 3 years ago, and we have had a couple of thousand happening. And I think once you have the infrastructure and the people, then there's definitely, you know, the DNA is going to be built in with the people element, and the infrastructure will support that growth and development. So I think those are two key things that are critical to the growth of a country.
Thank you, Linda. And we always come back to the talent, the human capital, which is the main factor really of production in the services sector. And we have to do this again, public and private. Those are the programs that the IDB is funding in the region. We mentioned some at the outset. And it's getting those public and private together, those finishing schools, as they were called in India back in the days, and even in the 60s and 70s, emulating many of the things MIT was doing in Bangalore and other places. So yes, power to the people, talent to the people, public and private. Daniel, one very specific question for you, and then final thoughts from everyone, and we have to wrap up. But Carolina was mentioning this, that top leadership is key. But how do we convince our bosses? How do we convince the top leadership on that element of engaging for that digital transformation? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, Carolina told us, if you don't have the C-level engaged, the transformation is not going to happen. And basically, when we talk to the customer comes to us saying technology is the answer, but technology is not the answer. Technology is the vessel. And we were talking yesterday about the vision, and some of the entrepreneurship here is going to relate to this, and also the leaders is, what is my vision in the next 2 3-5 years, the Prime Minister told us what's the vision, right? So first, we understand this vision, then we talk the language of each of one of the businesses, because it's not the same thing to talk to an oil company, to a retail company, to a manufacturing company. We have experts for that, industry experts for that also, and then you can focus on what type of technology is going to drive this transformation. And you need to measure the impact. That's the main thing, and Carolina mentioned it, is if you're not measuring, you're not generating an impact, and you're not finding the new opportunities to adapt. That's the main way we communicate to our C-levels.
Amazing. You already gave your last thoughts. Technology is not the vessel. It's not the answer, it's the vessel. Amazing. Linda, 4 or 5 words important from this chat.
Training and invest in the future.
Mariana, 4 or 5 words.
Just 4 or 5? Okay. Definitely technology, of course, but using technology in a responsible way. Give me a little bit, just one more. It's not about digital transformation just because it's trendy. You have to ask yourself, what are you transforming? What is the objective? So when you're doing all of this of digital transformation, AI and machine learning and blockchain, ask yourself why. Why are you trying? Don't follow the trend.
And to piggyback, we are talking about upskilling workers, but they also need to understand the risks of AI and what AI is not capable of doing. That is the responsible AI approach. You must make sure that we understand the benefits, but also how to manage the risks. If you have not considered integrating AI into your current risk management program, start today.
And I guess I would say you have to think of this neither as a sprint nor a marathon. It's a never-ending game. It's something that doesn't have a finish line, so you have to constantly be rethinking and challenging yourselves in terms of, okay, what do I do next? What do I have to do next? Where am I missing an opportunity?
Exciting, 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 exciting. That's my closing words. Thank you so much. A big applause for this amazing group of leaders.
Thank you so very much. I thought that Fabrizio definitely brought the energy. We could sense that he has definitely set the tone. While they were speaking, these are my takeaways. And if you didn't get to write them down, maybe you will agree. Number 1, we acknowledge that the tools and the disruption are here to stay, and we can't just simply wish them away. Number 2, don't panic. Don't get a heart attack. This is when you arm yourself with information and knowledge, which means you now have to be open to research. Number 3, ask yourself, how can you utilize the tools strategically to leverage, enable, and empower business? And keep in mind that not all tools, not all technology are relevant to your business. Ask, how can it help to boost productivity by employees? And how can they use the technology, not necessarily be replaced by it? Ask yourself, who can help me to understand this? And the persons with the answer could be a customer, staff, intern, or an industry leader. Ask yourself, who is using the results? Who is using the tools and getting the results? And lastly, culture management, change management, organizational management are important. You must look at transparency, governance, security, regulation, and licensing. I also want to remind you that we have local tech entrepreneurs who will be here at the TID zone in the exhibition hall, and they'll be able to talk to you about security, storage, software, and so much more. I absolutely enjoyed that conversation. It was timely as it was relevant.